Welcome to the second episode of 51 Shades of Grey. I am your host, Sean Grayson. I know you guys aren't sick of that little tagline. It's pretty funny, I think. Rocking out the Mr. Perfect shirt, very old school scenario. And I did a little upgrading in the background right here. We took WrestleMania attendance records from WrestleMania 35, the 15-hour WrestleMania. And if you were there, like I was, there were definitely points where you fell asleep in your seat. But I digress with that. Listen, I'm really excited about this episode. Big things happening. If anybody watched the pilot show, on Monday, I really thank I really thank you guys for listening. It's only going to get better from here. Let's talk about that better. But let's talk about the format in case you forgot. 51 Shades of Grey, 51 minutes of wrestling talk. Now, we're going to cover three things tonight. And one of those things we're going to go long, just like we did with the Wyatts, right? But this one is not as, this one is not as spicy. It's not going to make you feel as much. But in turn, it will make you think. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about three topics. Number one, we have to start out with the huge topic, right? Topic that we're going to talk about is what happened to AEW. The second topic is a Dynamite review and then a Smackdown preview. Now, I want to start off by saying, and I'm going to slightly move my camera a little bit, as you can see the hat's up there with an AEW hat up there. There's a WrestleMania hat as well. But I want to preface by what I'm going to say by simply saying that I am a huge AEW fan. But my opinion is not going to be skewed in any which way. I'm going to tell you the facts of what's going on. I'm going to make you think. But I want to let you know, again, being a huge AEW fan, I don't just watch. I go, right? So we go back to about, I think, 2019 or so, the start of AEW, right? Obviously, it started on Double or Nothing, but in reality, the first show was in October. Why do I know that? I know that because I was there in October in Washington, D.C. with a friend. We went. And as it went down, up and down the northeast coast, it was finding its way to New Jersey, to New York, to Philadelphia, to Baltimore. I went and I went and I went and I went and I went. It was amazing. It got to a point also where I even went down to South Carolina. Now, I happened to be going to South Carolina because I was going on golfing, but lo and behold, guess what was there? Dynamite. So the passion I have for AEW is immense. But as I speak to you today, the question I hear on X, and if you are on X, just started our X page, 51 Shades of Grey, PW Pod. So come check that out. It's essentially going to be loaded episodes, but we got some things cooking in the works right now that I'm not going to obviously reveal right at this moment, but we have some things in the works. But what happened to AEW? That's the question that happens on group chats. It happens just talking to friends. If you watch wrestling, what happened? And I'm going to shoot everybody straight here. And some people might like this opinion, and some people might not, and some people it'll just make you what? Think, right? First episode, I wanted to make you feel, but this episode, I want to make you think. And the answer to the question is, what happened to AEW? The answer is nothing. In its inception, nothing. Nothing really happened. There have been some mess-ups, of course, right? But let's talk about what I mean by nothing really happened. Things just stopped being in the honeymoon stage. Let's talk about the history of it all. Right? I'm a huge history buff for this concern. I'll bring you back to bring you forward. So, again, AEW starting in 2019, the hot company. Everybody, oh, could they compete with WWE? Oh my God, can they do this? Oh, they have Chris Jericho. They have the Young Bucks, very hot then. Hangman Page. Oh, they have Cody Rhodes. Now, if you watch the pilot episode, you know Cody's my boy. I'm a Cody crybaby. They have all these people, and they have endless money from Tony Khan. Now, for those of you who don't know Tony Khan, you must be living under a rock. But Tony Khan is the owner of AEW, his father, and he also owned the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Fulham soccer team. Shout out to Soccer USA right now is playing Panama in the Copa America. Hope we can pull that off. But endless deep pockets is completely different than what any other company dealt with. And even back in the Monday Night Wars, right? You can't compare endless pockets and a passion for wrestling. Anybody who watched Who Killed WCW on Vice on Tuesday nights realizes that TNT, TBS, Turner Sports did not care. I mean, Ted Turner cared, but everybody else did not care about wrestling back then. Even though back then they're pulling numbers, real numbers, because, DVR didn't exist. Streaming was a thought, but never really something that was accomplished at that point. And when you look at the numbers, there was points in time where WCW was pulling like a 6.3, 6.4. That's a lot of people watching wrestling, sitting down and watching it. And as it kind of progressed, it got to like the 4.2 stage, but it's 4. And just to put in perspective for anybody right now, Raw does about a 1.9. SmackDown 2.4, 2.2. It really depends on kind of what's going on. So to put in perspective, something getting a 6 is unbelievable, right? But we consume products all different ways now. I mean, look, I'm here. I'm on your computer, or I'm in your ear, or I'm on your phone. I'm not on your TV, unless you have a weird setup, right? And I'm still not being able to cut this stuff because I have no idea what I'm doing where that's concerned. Again, I'm just a fan. Just a fan of pro wrestling that wants to make you think. So when AEW started, it was endless money, the hot baby in the room. But we're all missing a very big thing. To me, a huge, massive difference as to what's going on now and what's going on back then. And I'm going to use the dirty word in the room here. We're not going to mute it, but it's a dirty word. 2019 was still the Vince era of WWE. You had no storylines. You had situations that you got 5 minutes on a match that there's no tell story. That's just go wrestle. Funny little jokes here and there that Vince thought was funny. And people were sick of it. People were looking for the alternative. When you flash back to the late 90s and the birth of ECW, you have the alternative to what was going on in WCW and in WWE at that moment. Now, how we know now, we find out, obviously, that Paul Heyman was in bed with Vince McMahon, essentially. Not literally, Huck too, none of that stuff, right? But, financially in bed with the WWE. And you have that situation and how it kind of progresses from a business partnership perspective. With AEW, the AEW's not in bed with the WWE. And in the beginning of AEW, everything was so new. It was so exciting. It was lights go out. Oh my God. Who's going to come next? You have Jon Moxley, former Dean Ambrose, right? You have Jake Hager, former Jack Swagger. You had FTR come in. And it was amazing. Now we flash forward a little bit, just a little bit, towards the pandemic. And we're still in this scenario of just hot honeymoon stage of AEW. People are still showing up. Now, why was AEW more successful than WWE in the pandemic? I could tell you why. WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania 37. I think it was 37. Was in the Performance Center. I've never watched it again. I've seen all the other WrestleManias, replays of them. The Cody Rhodes win over Roman Reigns, I've probably seen a dozen times, if not more. It was and so you have a situation where it's quiet, and it felt very studio, but not in like a cool studio way. It felt very like pin droppy. Now we move over to AEW in that same time period. In that time period, they're having it at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, side of the kind of like the grandstand, if you will, of the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium, out in the open. They use their wrestlers as ring fans, if you will. So you got that sense of like people were there. And you didn't get that sense in WWE. And then you kind of flash forward a little bit more, and the WWE goes to the Thunderdome. And there's the people that signed onto their computers to have their faces around the screen. And they're piping in boos and cheers and all this kind of stuff. And AEW is still doing Daly's Place, but they're slowly but surely bringing a few hundred people back, and they're spreading them around Daly's Place. So you have that fan kind of interaction. And people are popping in still, right? People are popping in. People are jumping in. People are answering open calls for title matches. And you're like, I can't believe this. Look who it is. It's this person. It's this person. It's this person. And every time there was a release in WWE, the first thing you thought was, man, I can't wait until they get to AEW, and rest assured, with deep pockets, they got there. And then we get out of the pandemic, and you have, Roman Reigns kind of leading the way, if you will. And it's still in a Vince regime. And AEW is still a hot baby. It's still a hot baby. AEW brings in CM Punk, who is a needle mover. No matter what anybody tells you about CM Punk, the heelish things that he does, he's a needle mover. And it makes you think, right? It makes you think. This man was bringing in, again, we talked about the numbers of the viewership, right? And we're in a different viewership, but they were bringing in, Dynamite was bringing in, and Collision, their second show, they're bringing in over 1 million viewers. It's pretty good for a company that's, a company that's 2 years old, 2.5 years old. Still in the honeymoon stage, though. Still in that honeymoon stage. And as time progressed, AEW got stronger and stronger. And you couldn't miss a night. Do you remember on our last show, I said Monday Night Raw being 3 hours was real boring, right? Back in the day, real boring. Under the Vince regime, it was very boring. Occasionally, you would get a home run, but a lot of times you were being walked or hit by a pitch. A little baseball reference for you. You were not. I couldn't even say that they were getting singles. It was just home run or bust. And AEW wasn't like that. Every night was a home run. And you as and me as an AEW fan, and even you as an AEW fan, we're invested. We're invested because every night it made you think who was showing up next. It gave you dream matches. And we're going to talk on the next show, previewing Forbidden Door. We're going to do a little bit today, right? We're going to do just a little bit, but we're going to talk about, obviously, we're talking about what's changed in AEW. And it was exciting. Now, there are a lot of people out there that will say, Sean, man, they had their mess ups too. And they did. You know, I find it very interesting. And I'm going to make you think. If we flash back to the time periods, and I'm going to give you an example. 2 episodes ago on Who Killed WCW, Kevin Nash was talking. Kevin Nash was talking about all the mess ups that happened under Vince Russo and at the end of Eric Bischoff. And they were showing a scene where blood was supposed to drop down and it completely missed him. To the left of him, he kind of just looked and was like, right now. He was saying that might have been the time period that started the kill of WCW, the finger poke of death, which was when Hulk Hogan tapped Kevin Nash after beating the next night, I think, after beating Goldberg at Starrcade, and tapped him. He fell 1, 2, 3. Could you imagine if all of those things were now? Like, could you imagine if that blood drop was now? What it would do? What on X, on Instagram, on Facebook or Meta or however you call it, but just social media alone, you would be getting hundreds and thousands of people sitting there like, oh my God, I cannot believe, hashtag cancel this, hashtag cancel this. This is ridiculous. Bah, 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 bah. What would you do? You'd do that. I know you would. I probably would too. I probably would. I probably would be like, what is going on here? This doesn't make sense at all. And we flash forward to the problems that AEW had. AEW had some problems. WWE had many problems back in the day. We're not talking about the nonsense that they did. Now, under the Vince regime, we're talking about all those problems. Because I know, I read it. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. God, I go to sleep after 3 hours. Now, with AEW, while this was going on, you were never going to do that. AEW was the hot baby in the room. It was the beautiful girl in the corner. You couldn't stop looking. You had to. You weren't looking because it was a train wreck. You were looking because it was like, oh my God, we're getting this match to this match. God, I remember AEW did something called Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe. First off, the fact that it's at Arthur Ashe is amazing. And look, Forbidden Door, UBS Arena, this Sunday in Long Island. This should be at Arthur Ashe. I digress. That's a whole other issue for a whole other time. But the first Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Wednesday night, it wasn't even the main event. Let me just give you a thing. Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, a draw, 30-minute draw. It was Bryan Danielson's first match. And think about who we're talking about. Bryan Danielson, former Daniel Bryan in WWE. Vince didn't want him to wrestle in WWE. There was nothing for him. And guess what? Tony Khan said, hey, come down. And so AEW was hot. And so what happened? This is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about what happened to AEW. And I said to you before, I don't believe anything really happened. This is what I think happened. Triple H happened. The Paul Levesque era happened. Everything that WWE was known to be negative about, you didn't watch because of this. You didn't watch because they weren't pushing this. They weren't doing this. They weren't doing the things that made you think. Now they were. And as months and months and months progressed, WWE was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, we go back to situations where, again, obviously the mess ups, and we could talk about the all-out fight between Punk and the EVPs and all those things. We could talk about when Cody left. And I'm not here to speak about what happened, why Cody left, or what was going on with Cody to make him leave, or really any of those things. I'm not involved. I'm not an insider. I don't know. But I want you to go back to WrestleMania 38. I think it was 38. No, was it 38? Maybe it was 37. Maybe it was. You know what it was? Thinking about it now. The mania of COVID was 36. So let's go back to 37. '37 was at Tampa Bay. It was the first one afterwards. Amazing scenario. I think it was the pinnacle of Bryan Danielson's kind of last run. And also Edge's or Adam Copeland's. Oh, he's in AEW too, right? It was the pinnacle for him, and he was allowed back. And he was allowed to go to essentially to AEW. And wrestle. But when we talk about Cody Rhodes and we talk about him leaving, we go to a situation where he was constantly booed at AEW. I don't know why. Maybe he can answer that question. I don't know if he knows why, honestly. I'd love to get him on here for many reasons, obviously, but I'd love to ask, why do you think you were booed? Because when you look at like WrestleMania 38 and his pop-up to be Seth Rollins' opponent, and the exuberation that all of us felt, and the clapping, the appreciation, all of it for Cody Rhodes, that was kind of like a strike one for AEW. Wasn't that a big deal at the time? Nobody really thought about it as a big deal, but it's definitely something you can go back to. And you flash forward, you can go to All Out, where a fight happened between CM Punk, his friend Ace Steel, Kenny Omega, though I don't know if Kenny was really involved because Kenny was holding a dog. Again, I'm not there. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. For all of what I've heard. But what I heard was it rubbed people the wrong way. Now, again, if we go back to 96, 97, 98, there are probably tons of fights that probably would have rubbed people the wrong way in 2024 too. We don't know about it. We knew about this. That could be a strike too. Where we get to kind of strike three. And it's not strike three, you're out. It's just another strike. Is we get to All In. Now, keep in mind, while this is happening, AEW's viewership is declining. They are not declining because I can't watch this product anymore. You're a wrestling fan. Now, look, some people I know will stop watching or watch less of AEW because there was lots of blood. I like blood. Not the amount of John Moxley, right? Like, he walks down the street and he bleeds. In fact, when he doesn't bleed, it's kind of funny. But you have situations where, people probably, and again, I'm trying to make you think, people probably are watching Monday Night Raw more now. So they're watching Monday Night Raw because they can take Monday Night Raw, because they like Monday Night Raw, because Monday Night Raw is 3 hours that you cannot turn away from. And at the same time that's happening on Monday Night Raw, Friday Night Smackdown is good too. So that's 5 hours of wrestling. And now I'm asking you to watch another 2. And on top of the other 2, hey, figure out another 2 for Saturday for AEW Collision. Oh, by at the same time, after you're done watching SmackDown on Friday, hit up Rampage for an hour. Come on. That's asking for divorce if you're married, or to be single because you'll never have a date. And because AEW is moving themselves with these strikes out of the honeymoon stage and the excitement of who's coming in next or crazy storylines or anything that from a dream match perspective you're going to get. And by the way, the word dream match, I know that I think we throw that word around a lot. By definition, a dream match is a generational type thing. So like Ric Flair versus Roman Reigns. Nick Bockwinkel versus Zack Sabre Jr. Kenny Omega versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Seth Rollins versus Macho Man Randy Savage. Generational type stuff. That's why when Rock wrestled Hogan, it's really a generational thing. It was unreal. So I think we throw that word around. This dream match scenario. But they were out of the dream matches. They were just producing regular content. And it's hard. This is my second episode. It's content. So imagine consistently pushing out content or having the time to watch it, right? And so you start to watch or to not watch AEW as much. AEW becomes a situation where you can miss a Wednesday now. So now all of a sudden they were doing 1 million, and now they're doing 900,000, and then they're doing 800,000. And let's just throw in a situation that while this is going on, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, is running NXT. And who's his best friend? Paul Levesque. Paul Levesque's hitting at all cylinders on Raw and SmackDown. Of course, his friend is going to be starting to hit on cylinders in NXT. And so NXT's viewership is going higher. Now we're adding another show, a Tuesday night show. So let's back up. Monday, 3 hours. Tuesday, 2 hours. Wednesday, AEW, 2 hours. Thursday, if you watch TNA, 2 hours. Okay. Friday night, guess what? You got SmackDown for 2 hours and an hour-long Rampage. And then Saturday night, you have Collision for 2 hours. And God help if there's a PLE or pay-per-view on a Sunday. And then it's recycle, repeat. It's not sustainable. So what do you not watch? Do you watch the show that's just you can miss? And so I don't think that they are losing viewership or fans from it. They're losing viewership because I'll catch it up later. Or it's DVR and then I'll watch it later. Or I'll see the highlights on X and if something hits my fancy, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch it. And that's what's happening. I could sit here and tell you that it's the fact that AEW recycles storylines really quickly and it's like a 3-month thing or a 3-week thing. Or they're using all their matches, their really good matches on Wednesday night. But I don't think that's it. And for some of you, it might be it. That might be your thought process. My thought process is not that way. I'm going to make you think. It's just the fact that everyone else is getting better. And AEW is here. It's plateaued. It's even keel. We know we are going to get good wrestling. Sometimes great wrestling. And we're going to talk about that great wrestling when we preview Forbidden Door and when we talk about the Dynamite review. But that's what we're getting. God, some of the best wrestlers are in AEW. Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland, Samoa Joe, Will Ospreay, FTR, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page, whatever the hell he is. The list goes on. and on and on. MJF. I mean, it's a plethora of talent. But what's happening is they're doing what they're supposed to do, which have great stories and occasional great good segments. But WWE, they're hitting on all cylinders. You know, there was a 3-week lull after Mania, but they're hitting on all cylinders again. And so I'll watch the PLEs, right? I mean, the pay-per-views for AEW. And I'll be perfectly honest, I think AEW gives you the best pay-per-views for your $49.99. Well, I say that, but I'm about to attend an event with 12 matches. I might have an entire head of gray hair. It might be not shades, it'd just be just gray at that point. I'll look like Richard Gere and Pretty Woman. By the time that show is done, it might be WrestleMania 35 all over again. But they're really giving you, maximizing the money, right? They're maximizing your spend there, and they're maximizing your spend on TV. No, not one person. I don't think they can complain about one of the pay-per-views that AEW has. And we watch them. We just might not watch Dynamite as much. We might not watch Collision as much or Rampage. And there was a point in time, like I said, where I couldn't miss a Dynamite. I couldn't. I got frustrated when I missed it, and now it's not as perfect. And that's okay. But it needs to evolve. It needs to get better. The Forbidden Door situation was an amazing thing in the beginning. It's on its 3rd year, and to be honest, all the people in Forbidden Door that I wanted to see are now AEW roster people. Okada. God, we didn't even mention Okada, the Rainmaker, who's on the roster. I mean, it's Okada, the man who's had match of the year probably in the last 6 or 7 years, at least 5 times. Had some of the best matches with Kenny Omega people have ever seen. It's got to evolve. I'm just here to make you think. So when people say, like, oh my God, the viewership is so low, people just didn't want to watch at that point. They're not going anywhere. You'll see the fluctuation. And I'm tired of people saying, oh my God, AEW is going to go away. TNT and TBS love them. Warner Brothers loves them. They're not going anywhere. And when they eventually get a streaming deal, you'll have all of the pay-per-views in one place. You'll know what I'm talking about. And you will bring people back in because they'll remember what it was like. And maybe at the same time, Tony Khan will remember what it was like. It's hard to book episodic television. Michael Cole said something on Monday. He was like, this is the 1,400. I don't remember the number, but it was a lot. Every week. It's got to be written. Fortunately for WWE, Vince McMahon's not around to rip everything up all the time. But it's running on all cylinders. So now, I can't not watch WWE. And I can miss a few weeks of AEW. A place that I used to go and attend all the time. Now, if it's in Newark, I sometimes go. I sometimes don't. If it's in Philly, I sometimes go. I sometimes don't. It was just in Allentown. It's not that far. It's an hour and a half. I sometimes go. I sometimes don't. So that's what happened to AEW and what's wrong with it. So let's get into recapping. We're going to kind of go through both of them because we need to recap Dynamite. And we need to preview Smackdown. So it's a go-home show, essentially. And for those of you who don't know what a go-home show is, it's a show before the pay-per-view, right? It's in Buffalo, New York. Hot for Daniel Garcia. People love their Daniel Garcia there, which is great. It starts with Daniel Garcia, MJF, and you have MJF and Daniel Garcia trading pleasantries. You're amazing, you're great. Very weird for MJF to do those kind of things, but MJF came and said, "Look, Daniel, I think you're so good. I want to offer you a match at All In London." And accepted, of course, right? Of course. Boom, Will Ospreay's music hits, crowd goes nuts, and he comes in the ring and he says, and he has a match obviously this weekend for the AEW World Title against Swerve Strickland, and he's saying, "Look, I'm not only going to give you a chance at my international title, which is one on his shoulder, I'm going to give you a chance at the AEW World Title as well next Wednesday because obviously I'm going to win." And boom, there you go, right? But that's, and everybody's looking at that like, "Oh my God, the kid," No, I'm not looking at it like that. I'm going to make you think. While that's going on, MJF is sitting in the corner, just kind of looking at him. And when the acceptance happens with Daniel Garcia, Will Ospreay kind of, as he's leaving, turns, kind of looks at MJF, doesn't say a word, kind of shakes his head and leaves. That's something. There's something there. There's something really there. What is going to happen? See, that's an interesting storyline right there, ladies and gentlemen. That brings you into Forbidden Door. You have a situation where, is MJF going to cost Will Ospreay the match? Saying, "How dare you do something along those lines?" Where's this going to lead? I'm along for the ride. Sit back and enjoy it. My friend sometimes says, "Sit back and enjoy the ride I'm going to take you on." And in a lot of ways, I told you that last time. I said, sometimes just sit back and enjoy. Don't try to make it better. It might not be better. It'll be what it is. An MJF Will Ospreay match sounds phenomenal to me. Well, let's see how it plays out. I do find it very funny, though, that the main event at Forbidden Door is not a Forbidden Door at all. 2 AEW wrestlers. So we get that, and obviously we get the ebbs and flows of Dynamite, the setting up of the Bryan Danielson Shingo match, the setting up of the Orange Cassidy Zack Sabre match. But I want to kind of go into the main event. And I'm passing over, by the way, and I'll get to this eventually at some point, maybe not today. Okay, Chris Jericho and his learning tree. I appreciate the fact that Chris Jericho likes to reinvent himself. No one has reinvented himself more over the past 5 to 6 to 7, 8 years than Chris Jericho. And first ballot Hall of Famer type scenario. This learning tree thing I hate. Now, I'm sure I'm supposed to hate it, right? The over-the-topness of his "hi guys," all of those kind of things. I'm sure it's there for us to hate it, and so if he's there for us to hate it, he's doing a great job. But the main event of the night, we're getting the Gates of Agony, and for those of you who don't know who they are, they're like a bootleg version of God. They're part of the Embassy, which was Swerve Strickland's group, versus Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. So put the people that are going against each other in a tag match together. That's very Vince. This is very Vince. Vince used to do that all the time. So what Vince would do sometimes is Vince would put them together and go, "Ha, let's put them together," right? Put them together, and they would, to see how they coexist, right? I never really liked it, but in this regard, the match was excellent. The match was absolutely amazing. And look, anytime you have Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland in a ring together, it's gold. It's magic. And I'm excited for the match on Sunday. I mean, I hope it's not at like 3:30 in the morning. It's going to run longer than that Wimbledon match that lasted like 3 days. But I hope they take you on a ride. See, sometimes at AEW with pay-per-views, they don't necessarily take you on a ride. What they do is they just keep you going. And so it's like exhausting. And it's somehow, some way, you've got like a match of the year somewhere in the middle. Like you're exhausted. It's exhausting. But I'm really excited about this. This is a take my money match. See, a bunch of us knew as soon as this match was booked, we were going. It's a take my money match because you want to be there to experience it. But you don't need to essentially see the build up prior. See where I'm going with that? You don't necessarily need that. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about the Forbidden Door. The Forbidden Door preview, but we're not going to do that until we do the Smackdown review. What we're going to do right now is we're going to talk about the Smackdown preview. At the Garden, right? The mecca of sports, if you will. And I'm going to run down some of the stuff you're going to see, and we'll talk just a little bit about them. We'll spend about 9 minutes or so talking about them. What amazingness. I don't even know if that's a word. This card is going to be. Let's talk about this. The fire in this card. Oh. Okay. So first off, we're going to get some kind of bloodline celebration, anointment, something because of Jacob Fatu. But I also am interested because Roman's father, Sika, passed away this week, of what they're going to do with that. I think that's important. Obviously, we're not getting Roman Reigns, so anybody that thinks they are, stop. Come on, be realistic. We're going to get that. We're going to get the men's qualifying match. LA Knight, Logan Paul, Santos Escobar. And that's a fire match, right? Because you have a situation where LA Knight and Logan Paul are feuding right now. I think inevitably that leads to a SummerSlam match between the two. But you're going to get a situation where this triple threat's not going to disappoint. It can't disappoint. And it won't. Anything that Logan... I don't care what anybody says. Logan Paul is the biggest, in the world. Right? People don't like him because he's grimy business, but he's self-made. And he's had, 10 matches maybe? And every one of his matches are great. Get off your high horse. Don't say you hate Logan Paul in the ring. You can say it because he's a heel. But don't say it. Don't say it in a way that makes what he's doing or how hard he's working wrong. Because he throws fire in that ring. And so what's the next match? Oh, if we thought that was good, we're going to get 2 more triple threat matches. Let's get Naomi versus a debuting on SmackDown, Blair Davenport versus Indy Hartwell. Is it the best match? No, but you're going to get Blair Davenport, who is great in the ring. She was a great indie wrestler. She was great in NXT UK, and also great, obviously, in NXT. But she can go, and you're going to get, obviously, Naomi who can go, and Indy who can go, but I think that she has a lot to prove still. And so I don't know who's going to win that match, nor do I know who's going to win the triple threat prior. I mean, I'd like to think that Santos Escobar is going to win it, and I'd like to think that Blair Davenport is actually going to win it, but maybe they'll go with Naomi because you'll want a ladder spot in the Money in the Bank, potentially. And then you have another triple threat match. Candice LeRae versus Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton. So look, Jade Cargill is still a little raw. She still needs the help. Tiffany is a star. A star. She is the quintessential heel. She is, aside from being easy to look at, right? Her ring IQ is amazing. It's amazing. And you pair that up with a strong mover like Jade Cargill, throwing people off things potentially, and in a triple threat match that could be amazing. And then you have Candice LeRae. Obviously, she's not going to win, but she's a veteran, and you're going to get her helping out along the way. Now, I'm sure there's other matches as well and other segments as well, but those are the four things I really want to cover. I want to, I want to go back, right? Because, again, I want to talk a little bit more about the bloodline. I love Jacob Fatu. I love Jacob Fatu. I love a fatter Jacob Fatu, right? I do. I love a 40-pound over Jacob Fatu. I love. He's Umaga's son, and so I envision him like kind of Umaga, right? Umaga, for those of you who don't know, kind of overweight but can move, can fly, and Jacob can do that too. Jacob is also amazing on the microphone. His work in MLW, great, with his wrestling with Alex Hammerstone, who I think of now of TNA or something along those lines. The matches were epic. But Jacob is this beast, this Samoan werewolf now that is the enforcer. It's hard to say what he is, right? I think he's the enforcer, but wasn't Solo the enforcer? But then I thought Tama Tonga was the enforcer. But then what's going on with Tongaloa? Right? This is what I know. For anybody that goes, I'm done with it, get off your high horse. This is gold. This bloodline stuff is gold. It is every bit of the best that pro wrestling has to offer now. A long time ago, they were talking about innings and what inning you were in the story. And we're about in the fourth inning or so. There is so much more to tell with them. God, just really think about it. Make you think where this could go. Who's next debuting? It's like old school NWO. I can't believe who's next. Now, I'm almost sure that anybody that's debuting is either Tongan or Samoan. But there's a lot of those people out there. If you saw that family tree that they had up, that Roman and Rock had up at that Vegas press conference, that tree was deep. That was like a Game of Thrones tree of the Targaryens. It was deep. I mean, do you throw Nia Jax eventually in? Can you throw Naomi in? You can do all of those things. This is the best story in pro wrestling. Doesn't need a title right now. Ebbs and flows. What's happening on SmackDown? I gotta see this bloodline. It's not your comedy bloodline like the old school bloodline was. This is a serious bloodline. This is we're gonna mess you up bloodline. It is everything you can ask for. It is being written and helped by Triple H, by Paul Heyman, with text messages probably from Roman Reigns. And this build out of just perfection and The Rock overseeing it all. It is everything in pro wrestling right now. It is the meat. It is the potatoes. It is the dessert. It is everything that you want Friday to be. A long time ago, when I'm 40 years old, when I grew up, when I was a young kid, Friday nights was like, thank God it's Friday on ABC. You saw Family Matters, Step by Step, Boy Meets World, all that stuff. Right now, Friday nights is I can't miss SmackDown. I need to watch it. I don't need to be there, even though it's in the garden. I need to watch it. And thank you for watching episode 2, 51 Shades of Grey.